Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next monthly masterclass. We're talking all things human skills again today. So, this is our fifth masterclass, would you believe? We've been running them now since January, completely for free on YouTube and LinkedIn. And I really enjoy doing them, I have to say. It's really good fun to just not be gatekeeping on any of this stuff, making it really available. It's one of my big passions, democratizing learning, because I think this stuff is so essential. Whether you're leading a team, whether you're in your own business and running it, or whether you're a contributor in an organization, these fundamental human skills, the stuff that really moves things forward, I think is super valuable because it's those everyday actions and behaviors that really start to create change in all of our workplaces and in all of our lives as well. So, if there's any questions or comments, please drop them in the comments if you're live with us on LinkedIn. If you're watching back on YouTube, we'll get to those as well. Any questions, any comments, anything that you want answering, pop them in the comments and I will certainly get through them as we go. So, just to get started, we are talking all about leading people through change today. So hopefully that's what you thought you signed up for. I'm very excited for us to get started, and hopefully there'll be lots of interesting things that come from it will help you in your everyday roles as well. So let's get cracking. We are in. So, leading people through change. I did put a little spoiler on this that it's not about having the perfect plan. And I genuinely believe this. So, this masterclass will be about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, just a really kind of quick deep dive into the topic. But it is something I talk about a lot on our newsletter and other places on LinkedIn as well. So, you can have a look at some of my other thoughts and commentary on this one. But let's get started. So let's talk about change. I mean, I don't know about you, but it is literally everywhere right now, isn't it? Whether we're thinking about things like AI and how that's transforming the way in which we work, whether we think about things like the return to office mandates that we're seeing across lots of different industries and organizations, the market shifts, the industry changes that are happening, those exciting new developments as well, where people are expanding into new areas or into international operations, or it could be that the restructures are happening. There's redundancies going on in your organization that are quite challenging to be navigating. Whatever it is that you're going through in that change, one of the things that PwC did a report on, I think it was earlier this year, I can send the link in the comments. They reported that 2/3 of employees faced more change in the last year than the year before. And I can believe that. I don't know about you, but certainly the clients we work with in our own organization, in the ways in which we're all working, lots of change for us to be navigating right now. But here's one of the things that I find really fascinating. And I'll be really honest, I did actually learn this the hard way. And I'll go into some of those stories as we go through the session today. I don't believe your team doesn't actually hate change. What they hate is how it's handled. And, those we've all been there, haven't we, in organizations or in situations where, those vague emails come out, or there might be cryptic meetings going on where people are not quite sure what's being discussed. And it's actually that sinking feeling that someone knows something that you don't. That's one of the things that makes change just so uncomfortable to understand, to navigate, and to actually be able to lead through. So there's some science around this, and some of you may be aware of this already, and I'll come back to this quote. But one of the things that I find really fascinating about change is the fact that there's this amazing science behind it. And, let's get real. Change can be incredibly challenging. But what's actually happening in your brain is very specific to your amygdala. And that's your brain security guard. Imagine it as that. So they're always on the lookout for threats. if you think of how we've evolved, they were always looking for that threat or that fear that we needed to be prepared for, that kind of fight or flight mentality. And that's what's happening during change. Change is that kind of 5-star threat that your amygdala is being developed to really look for and support. So that's why change can be so challenging for people. So now that we've got that bit out of the way, I just want to go back over because I want to just share this quote because I think it's really important when you are a leader who is navigating change. It can be really challenging and stressful, right? For the people going through that change, the whole team, you, everyone. And I really want you to remember, if you are that leader who's supporting your team right now through change, it is not your job to have all the answers, right? It is impossible to predict every single different scenario that will happen during that change process. Of course, we'll go into later how you can best plan and prepare, but the reality is you may not have all the answers. But I believe it's your job as a leader to really create that environment where people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel supported. And if they feel those 3 things, people are able to keep moving forward. And that's your job as the leader, to really help people keep moving forward. So quickly, for those who haven't joined us before, welcome to the masterclass. I can see a couple of you are already online, which is amazing. And for those watching on replay as well, welcome. So I'm Michaela Rini. I am obsessed with the world of learning and development. I run an organization called Opportunity Global, and we work with leaders and managers across the UK and other countries now as well, which is really exciting, to develop what I call human skills. So these are the really core skills like communication, empathy, giving and receiving feedback, handling and navigating difficult conversations, working through change, all of those really important stuff that will help us in our everyday lives. So today is not about theory. I will share some theory for you to go away and have a look at, but it's all more focused on the practical stuff. I also run a TEDx event in Teesside, and I am a speaker as well. So if you're ever looking for a keynote on a particular juicy topic around leadership or human skills or navigating change, you know where I am. And if we really, really struggle today, you can always ask me about goats because I'm also a goat herder, which is pretty cool. So if you want to find out more about what we do, you can follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So that's those little intros done, and let's dive into what we're talking about. So we talked about the brain and the science and that reality behind change, right? It can feel incredibly challenging because we've been designed to look for threats. And change, even if change is exciting and positive and something that people are really going to be able to, have a great experience through, it's still uncertain sometimes. It's still different. It's still new. So it can still have that fear wrapped up into it. Now, here's something that might blow your mind because it did me when I saw this a couple of years ago. 70% of change initiatives, they actually fail. And that's not meant to scare you, right? We still want you all to be showing up and navigating change and working through it. But hopefully it really does show you why understanding the human side of change is so, so crucial. I'm just going to go off on a quick tangent for a second, but hopefully it will help you. So if you went away and Googled the change curve when you get back to your desk or after this session, it's really fascinating because it's modeled on the grief cycle. And I think that perfectly illustrates why change can feel so emotionally charged when you're in it. Like the change curve is literally modeled on the grief cycle. And that's been used for years and years now. Kubler-Ross discovered it. You can go away and have a look at it. For me, that just says everything, right? If we're modeling the change curve on the grief cycle, it really demonstrates the very human and very real experience that people go through during change. And that's what I really want you to have at the back of your mind whenever you are implementing any changes in your organization, in your team, or even in your everyday life, right? This is why sometimes it can feel messy, it can feel uncomfortable, and it can feel really, really challenging, because it is, right? And everyone experiences change in a different way. Some might be stuck, processing what's happened or what they used to do or how things used to be, when other people might just be racing ahead, really excited about what the future looks like, what might be happening next. And some might really start to kind of bounce back quite quickly when they do feel like they've kind of gone through a bit of a setback in the change, or they could even be bouncing back and forth between these different stages. And I've got the change curve here just to give you an illustration of what that looks like. But as I said, go away and have a look at it. We're not doing a deep dive on this today because I really want to get into some practical stuff. But hopefully this really shows you how people navigate through change. And the thing is, it is not linear and it is not neat, right? People might be bouncing back and forth between accepting that change or really feeling like they're resisting it. If change was easy, I should say, change would be easy if everyone experienced it in the same way. But we don't, right? We're all human. We have our own stories, our own previous experiences, everything that we're bringing to that change moment. And that's, for me, why I don't believe a blanket approach to rolling out any change in your team, in your work life, in your organization. We can't do a blanket approach. Rolling out changes across a blanket approach does not work, in my opinion. So while you're at it, I want you to, as your homework on the masterclass, look at Kotter's 8 stages of change as well, and Simon Sinek's law of diffusion. I know, I promised there'd be no heavy theory, but honestly, this stuff is gold for understanding why some people jump on board with any changes that you might be implementing, and why others might really dig their heels in. So you may have had phrases before said to you like, well, we've always done it this way, or we've tried it before and it didn't work, or some other reason why the change either shouldn't happen, couldn't happen, or won't be successful. So these tools will really help you understand some of what's going on for people in the background. I will put those in the comments as well. Morning, Jade. Morning, Yvette. Yes, it is a huge number. 70% of change initiatives fail, which is just crazy to me. So we're going to talk about how we make them more successful today, I promise. So I want to share with you just a quick story that really helped me realize how people experience change in these very different ways. So a few years ago, I implemented what I thought was a brilliant idea. I'll be honest with you, I thought we'd nailed it. I thought this was a great initiative. So it was way before the kind of 4-day weeks had really been talked about hugely in the UK. I'd been reading and doing loads of research on the work that was happening in New Zealand. It's a really great project if you want to go and have a look at that. I think there's even a documentary now as well, but it's the 4-day week in New Zealand, which really kickstarted my excitement about bringing in a new way of working in our team and in our business. And it seemed amazing, right? Who wouldn't want a 3-day weekend? We kept everyone on the same terms, same salary. They were just working 4 days a week now. And we went through this process. We ran it as an experiment. We got really clear with our clients, with expectations. We set it all up as a team. It wasn't just me pushing down the message. We all were collaboratively part of this process. And I thought, who wouldn't want this, right? Well, it turns out quite a few people, a big proportion of our team, I would say something like 30 to 35% of our team. And at the time, we had quite a large team, maybe 50 to 55 people, including some of our associates. So quite a sizable team. And what we found is that a big proportion of those people actually found the experience way more stressful, which was not at all our intentionality behind it. So these people actually wanted flexibility every single day rather than feeling like they had to keep some of those hours that they were taking or time away during the working week to this one fixed day. Now, we never necessarily set it up that way, but I think because of the conditioning that we've all been through, the different experiences we've had, people actually found that the 4-day weeks, they were trying to cram kind of 5 days of work into 4 days. And it was actually not having the intention behind it that we wanted, which was more flexibility, more freedom, and actually focusing on people's well-being as well. And so the experiment didn't work. I suppose it did work in that we tried it, we tested it, we ran it for a few months to see how people were feeling, what worked, what didn't work. We made tweaks and changes. But we actually don't have a 4-day working week. And we didn't implement it as a long-term solution because I really learned something in that process, that change isn't this one size fits all approach, that blanket approach that we were, in all honesty, taking with our 4-day week. It often doesn't work because people experience change differently based on these past experiences, based on their current life situations and everything else in between. And so that is just one of the examples I'll share today. But on the face of it, I thought, genius idea, let's make it happen. The reality was it felt really, really uncomfortable for quite a lot of our team members. And it actually was not the way in which they wanted flexibility set up for them. So a big lesson for me was more consultation, through that process, getting really clear on what actually works for people at an individual level, for how they best show up in the workplace. What can you do as a leader to really get the best out of your team? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And actually the 4-day working week for us, that sweeping approach, it just didn't work. Maybe it's something I look at again in the future and maybe we try something differently, but at that moment in time, it really didn't work. So there was 3 critical lessons that I've learned, not just in that particular scenario, but in others as well, that I really want to share today, because I think it's these practical experiences, learning from other people, learning together, that really make the impact in our day-to-day lives and in the way that we're showing up as leaders in the workplace. Now, remember, when I say leader, I don't just mean you're leading a team of a certain size. I believe we all are leaders, right? That self-leadership, the way that we're showing up, is really, really important. And there will be changes that you're implementing in your role. They might seem small, they might seem insignificant to you, but actually I'll guarantee there's someone in your workplace or someone who'll be affected by that change who feels a bit uncomfortable right now. So I think this stuff is relevant, whether it's a big, shiny transformation that you're going through or something that's actually seems quite small. So here's my 3 lessons, and hopefully these will help you, A, not make the same mistakes I did, but also think about how you can use some of these tools and ways of working in your own day-to-day life. So 3 critical lessons. Lesson 1, say it and say it again. Okay. And then do it again. So even when you think you've said something 100 times, honestly, say it twice more at least. I used to really worry about annoying people by repeating myself about certain, things that we were working through as a team, certain projects, certain updates. But honestly, when change is happening, that amygdala that we talked about at the start, it's in absolute overdrive. So people don't hear everything that you're sharing the first time, or maybe even the third time, or maybe even the 10th time. So remember, one of my mantras that I love from the wonderful Brené Brown is clear is kind. People need to know what is happening, why it's happening, and most importantly, how this change is going to impact them personally. And everyone will take different information each time you communicate. So honestly, keep going, keep sharing the information, keep talking about the change that you're navigating. It's never just one and done. You've got to say it again and again. And honestly, even when you feel like you might be repeating yourself, it won't feel like that to the people you're communicating to. They will take different information every single time. So keep going. The second lesson that I've definitely learned, I say the reason I pause there is that I think we're all still learning this stuff, right? I can't say hand on heart that I navigate and lead change every single time expertly. That would not be true. There'll always be something that we can all take from this. There's always something that we can try differently, we can do better, or we can keep moving forward on. So that's why I had a little smile to myself there, because it's tricky, this stuff, right? Change is difficult, but it doesn't always have to be. It can also be really positive. So the bit here about making it personal, I believe that people don't really care about your big plans. I'm sorry to tell you. And okay, it might sound a bit dramatic me saying this, but honestly, hear me out on it. Yes, of course, people in your team, people around you, they will want to know the big picture. But the fact is, what they really care about is, what does it mean for me? Yeah. What does it mean for them as an individual? You can have all of the best, most beautiful PowerPoint slides, the most incredible business plan that you're sharing with people. But what people really, really want to know is what it means for them. So please, please don't waste time on having huge, over the top communication strategies and plans if you haven't answered that question of, what does it mean for me? Uncertainty in any change, that is where gossip takes root. That's where stories start spinning around. You know, even if you don't have all the details yet, just share what you know, because that is when that uncertainty's there, that's where the rumor mills start. That's where people, make a story from it. I'm not saying they make things up, but because we create stories, don't we, about situations in our own minds, that's where the stories start to take root. That's where we start making assumptions or second guessing or questioning what's going on. So we've really got to get clear about what any change means for the people going through it. Make it personal to them. Now, I've got two questions that I genuinely believe have transformed the way that I now navigate change, but also the way in which the literally thousands of leaders, managers, contributors that we've worked with across multiple different workplaces, they know these questions too now. And I think they really, really help you get clear on how you can best support your team. So the two questions are, one is, what can I do to make this easier for you? You're working and navigating through this change with. Get really clear on, where you can best support them. How can you, as their leader, as their mentor, whatever it is your role to them in the organization, how can you make it easier for them? 100% Claire. Yes, absolutely. That uncertainty absolutely exists. You're right. The gaps people fill, don't they? And that's where often a lot of more challenging situations then are needed to be unpicked, because people are filling in the gaps with their own stories, with their own experiences. And that's where then the change can actually turn to chaos. So thank you. That's a great contribution. The second question I love to ask is, what question do you have that you're not asking me because you're worried or nervous about A, asking it, or B, what my answer might be? And honestly, this second question, I genuinely believe it's absolute gold because it creates this space for all of those concerns that people might have, that they're sitting on, that they're, been keeping to themselves because they're not sure who to ask it, when to ask it, and they're really a bit fearful about asking the question. And this, for me, it gets those little niggles out that maybe are keeping people up at night or that they're a bit afraid to voice. So for me, knowing what's really going on for your team and the people around you while you're navigating change, that's really critical because that then helps you understand not only what they need from you as a leader, but actually you can maybe discuss those issues, those potential challenges before they become a problem and before these gaps are created and the gossip may start. So it's kind of helps you get a little bit ahead of this stuff. Okay, so my third lesson is, and it's connected to the other two for sure, but I think it's a really important one. So I wanted to highlight it, is that, being visible is super, super critical during any change that you're navigating, even when you feel the change is relatively small. So I think it was definitely one of my biggest learning moments, probably ever, when just over 2 years, about 2.5 years ago, I closed a business that I was running. I was running with a business partner. And for about the 6 months leading up to that decision to close the business, we were working really hard to be transparent with our team about the challenges, what was going on. We were navigating various different contractual and legal issues with a major client. And we were so focused in that process on being open that actually I think we shared information before we had all the answers about next steps and processes. And being really honest, looking back, I think sometimes our transparency without complete answers might have caused even more chaos for our team. But I know one thing for sure. If we'd chosen to not be visible at all, that would have been way, way worse for our team. And actually, I know other organizations who were going through very similar at the time who did choose the other route of not being visible. And I think that actually ultimately was worse. So yes, we didn't have all the answers. And I think we did share things sometimes at the wrong time that might have caused some more chaos. But I've honestly seen too many leaders announce big changes, then disappear into, endless meetings about managing that change. And the truth is, your team, they really need to see you, because every unanswered email, every delay you might have in, responding to a Teams message or replying to a call, whatever it is that you don't have capacity to respond to, that amygdala that we talked about at the start, that is creating worst case scenarios out of that situation. So when you're not visible, when you're not there and available to your team, that's when some of that kind of worst case scenario escalation happens. It's where the gossip really takes control. And honestly, I think being visible, even when you don't have all the answers, it's so much better. Yes, it'll be hard. Yes, it'll be uncomfortable for you. If it is a challenge that you're, a change that you're navigating, which is difficult, but it also means that you are there to answer questions, right? Even if you don't have all the answers. So be visible, be visible. And that's true whether it's a really positive, exciting change that you're going through as well. So how do we actually make change work? I've got a really simple little action plan here just to help navigate this. And again, use this a lot with different organizations who are navigating change. We deliver this in workshops and across our different leadership programs, because I do believe theory has a place, absolutely. But sometimes we just need to know what to do next. So here's a couple of things that I like to do when I'm planning any change. So whether it's a really exciting new development that we're working through, a new project, or, when we've expanded into different countries, or it might be when you're navigating something a bit trickier. So the first thing is plan for the emotional impact of this change. Plan for it ahead of time. Get support, coaching, training for your team so that they are best equipped to navigate any change that might come their way. Help and support your teams to build that resilience. Don't wait until the change is happening. Really plan ahead for this. Really create a great space for people to express their feelings and to acknowledge those feelings of how they're genuinely feeling during this change that they're navigating. So, we don't need all of that kind of toxic positivity that, yes, everything will be great and everything will be fine. Really allow that space for your team to acknowledge those feelings and to get really clear on how they are feeling about that change. And really remember that everyone will be experiencing this differently. So plan for that emotional impact. Don't just wait until it happens. Really plan for what are the different cases, the different scenarios that might be happening for people during this change. The second one is own your communications. Honestly, anything that's difficult and challenging, don't delegate it. I heard of a CEO the other day who had a hard conversation to have with an external organization. And although they were the individual who had the problem with this particular person, they just completely delegated that to someone else in their team. And for me, that isn't leadership. When you've got these hard conversations to have, yes, I'm a big believer in empowering other people, of course, absolutely. But you need to be hyper vigilant about the messaging across your organization during any change. You've got to be hyper vigilant about how that is communicated, supporting people with those crucial questions like, how can I make it easier for you? What aren't you asking because you're worried? You've got to stay visible and available. The final one is finding the balance. And I know this sounds a bit mad when you might be going through change right now that feels a bit difficult or uncomfortable, but you've got to find the balance with sharing what you do know and being really, really honest about what you don't know. So keep that communication open. Have regular one-to-ones with your team. Don't just do one mass email or mass kind of town hall group call or meeting and then walk away. Then follow up with the one-to-ones. Do those deeper conversations to really understand what is going on for the people in your team as they navigate this change. Again, whether it's a really exciting transformation or something more challenging, even if you think it's the most exciting thing ever, like I did with the 4-day work week, the reality is there will be someone in your organization who is feeling uncomfortable with that change. And it's your job to really understand what is going on for them, to really listen to what is going on for them. If in all of this, the one thing you take is listen to people during change, because they will tell you everything you need to know to better show up for them and to better navigate it. Okay, so to just close us off for today, and this one I'll have to be honest really hurts, but it's a fact. And I had to learn it, and I think we probably all have had to at different points in time. When you're leading change, some people, no matter what you say, what you do, how you set them up for success during that change, they're not going to like you. I'll say that again. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, some people during the change that you are navigating, they're not going to like you. And for me, as a recovering people pleaser, I find this probably one of the hardest things. And genuinely, I've had it all. When I've been in corporate, when I've been in my own businesses, I've had people say, it won't work. I've had people say, we've tried it before. I've had people scream at me. I've even had threats to my safety. I kid you not. I've had character assassinations, you name it, because change is so scary for people that fear-based that fear kind of feeling and that fear base we all come to in any form of change, that is where people are coming from. And so once you understand that, you can better help the people around you navigate that fear, navigate that change in a much more positive, or at least less stressful way. So that's why I believe you've got to really get clear on why you keep showing up during any change and who you're showing up for. But most importantly, this is why I believe all of us have a responsibility to do the inner work, to heal the parts of us that we don't like, because that's how you become a better leader when you are in any different situation. So let's be honest. As I said earlier, have I always handled change like an absolute pro? No, I haven't. There absolutely will be mistakes. There will be moments when you wish you could do something different. But if you've been open about it, that's okay, because we're all human, right? And this change stuff, it can be really messy. So just give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience, be kind to yourself and to your team through any change that you're navigating. So I'm going to leave you with just 3 action steps that I would love you to do off the back of the masterclass today that you can literally go away and do right now. Because you know I love a bit of action if you've tuned into any of these masterclasses before. And I really enjoy sharing things that I know have worked. They're tried, they're tested, and I know that this will help you as you're navigating any change right now in the workplace. So firstly, those frameworks that I talked about earlier, so the change curve, Kotter's 8 stages, and Simon Sinek's law of diffusion, go away and look those up. Have a bit of a deep dive. There's some great content online. There's some really nice short kind of YouTube videos that will explain those different theories. And I really believe they're great tools to just understand and have in your back pocket when you are navigating any change. I will drop them in the comments as well. Secondly, book those one-to-ones with your team today, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you have more time. Do it today. Prepare those 2 key questions that we discussed earlier. So how can you make this easier for them? And what question are they not asking you because they're worried or concerned about the response? Really think about how you can create these spaces for, honest conversation where you're listening more than you speak. That bit's really, really critical. So when you do have those one-to-ones with your team to talk about any changes that are happening, please listen more than you speak. Ask the question, pause, and something that I do just to remind myself if I'm getting a bit excited. You can see I speak a lot with my hands. So I actually sit on one of my hands as a reminder and an anchor to myself when I really, really want to deeply listen. So find your little anchor to remind yourself, because that's going to be a really critical part of this process to really help your team navigate change more effectively. And the third action I'd love you to take is get really crystal clear on what success looks like for you in this period of change. And I mean really clear for you personally, for each individual in the team, and for the wider organization. Don't just stop at that kind of high level, what the change will mean. Break it down step by step, because this will help you in your communication with the wider team, but it'll also help you when you're having those moments of maybe doubt or uncertainty as you navigate this change. So you could ask things like, what can you actually control during this change? What can you expect or anticipate and maybe plan for? So things like that emotional impact on your team. What specific actions need to actually happen for this change to be successful? And who needs to be involved at each of those stages? because the involvement of your team or anyone that you're working through change with is so, so critical to the process. If they could not only understand what it means for them personally, but see themselves in that change and be part of it and supportive of it and help build the blocks that you need, the actions that need to take to manage that change, it will be so much more successful. People need to feel part of it, not like it's been done to them. So, with those action plans, then make your plan like a real plan, not just one that you're hoping the change will be okay. Whether it's a big change or a small change, honestly, your team can handle it. I do believe that they can handle that change. But what they do need from you is they just need you to lead them through it with openness, with clarity, and genuine care. That's all I need. It's not as scary as it may first seem. So, if you ever want to have a chat about change, I've got so many different examples and stories of things that have worked, haven't worked, that I'm always very, very willing to share and talk about. And just to close us out for today, if there are any other questions, obviously you can drop them in the comments either on YouTube or LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us live. If you are watching the replay, feel free to drop me a message on any of my socials and we can pick up there. And if you do want to find out a little bit more about me, the work that my team and I do, or even just enjoy these kind of topics around human skills, around leadership, around culture, and how we can all show up better in the workplace and in our own lives, a really great way to just find out more is by joining our mailing list. So I think it's twice a month at the moment. I send a newsletter out with a bit of a story, top tips, tools, really practical stuff that can help you move forward in your leadership role, in your contributor role in the workplace, whatever that looks like for you. And it's been a pleasure to be here for our 5th masterclass. So look out for the next one. We will be back again in June. And thank you so much for joining. Have a great day.